Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we're on.
And it's 6:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order of July 29th, the virtual special meeting. If you all could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Wait just a second. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you for putting the flag up, Chris. Tonight, the first order of new business is the reopening plan. I want to remind people of the fact that we sent out a link for questions. We sent that out twice now, so you should have it in your emails if you're watching. So if you have questions for us after the meeting today, please use that link to submit the questions, and we'll do the best we can to get those answers out to everybody as soon as possible. From here, I'd like to turn it over to Bill to start this portion of the meeting. Bill, it's all you.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm going to have Chris present the plan as I talk, and he'll scroll through and keep up with me the best that he can. So once Chris is there.
I'm there.
So I'm going to summarize the plan. I'm not going to read it verbatim, and it's linked on our website. I'm sure everybody has had a chance. If not, to read through it, it is linked to our website. The plan is comprehensive. It's 43 pages long. There's a lot of information. For tonight's purpose, I'm just going to summarize and hit on key topics within the plan. So before I get there, I would just want to say we're approaching a school year that will look very different than any other that we've experienced before. We know that COVID conditions would continue to evolve, and the guidance that we must follow from the county, state, and federal authorities will also evolve, and sometimes very quickly. We have found out that we've had 2 weeks to put this plan together, and these unprecedented circumstances have required us to reimagine teaching and learning and think very differently about how we can support a safe and successful school year for all members of our district, our students, our faculty, and staff. The plan that we have put together will allow us to adjust quickly as public health landscapes continue to evolve both before and after school starts. As with every plan of this magnitude, and considering we've had 2 weeks to put this plan together, and under these ever-changing conditions, this document will remain fluid and can change as necessary based on guidance from state agencies, local health experts, as well as our students, faculty, staff, and families. I'm well aware that there are a lot of questions. We are continually asking questions to our authoritative agencies, and we're going to do our best to answer questions in a timely manner. Some we may not be able to answer at this time until we get further guidance. As a district, we've prioritized socially distanced in-person learning whenever possible. But we also recognize that there may be families who, for many reasons that are unique to them, may not feel comfortable with in-person learning. So virtual learning for all or part of the school year will also be available as an option for those families. We learned a lot this past spring in how we delivered our virtual instruction. We've made adjustments based on feedback, and that has helped strengthen our virtual platform that we'll put forth. We know that the upcoming school year is going to be very challenging for all of us, and we need to continue to be patient, understanding of the situation that we've all been placed in. And it's important that all parents understand that we did not put these restrictions in place. We received very clear guidance from the Department of Health and the New York State Education Department, and our reopening plan for approval by the governor. We have no idea if the governor will decide in August to require us to go 100% virtual. The initial timeline is next week. We don't know if that will be held to that timeline, but we are ready to adjust if needed. So these have been very challenging times the last 2 weeks, but I'm really thankful and appreciative of our administrative team. They've worked tirelessly. Our task force team, who has put in countless hours to develop this plan. So Chris, if you can move to page 3. So despite the challenges with COVID-19, our district will continue to provide an excellent education to our students. It'll include both in-person and remote learning environments. As the public health crisis continues, we've been planning for the opening of 2020-21 with a focus on the health, safety, and well-being of our staff, our students, and our community. This plan follows recommendations for school opening and operations provided by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the New York State Department of Health, and the State Education Department, as well as state and local health officials. The situation with COVID-19 is continuously changing, as are the protocols and measures needed to keep students and staff safe. Our plan will remain flexible to accommodate potential changes, and these guidelines may be modified as needed. Our planning process has continually evolved based on new information and guidance. Our task force teams have planned with the following key priorities and focus areas in mind: the health and safety of our students, faculty, and staff, instructional continuity, parent feedback, equity, innovation, and communication. Page 4, please, Chris. If you can scroll to the bottom, right there, task force members. So 44 members spanning all operations of the district worked tirelessly to put this plan together. They were led by 4 working groups, which together explored a range of areas that are vital for a safe and successful school year. These groups considered options for the upcoming school year through 6 critical lenses that sharpened our focus on the health and safety of all school community members, that providing the best academic experience for students, and considered the needs of families and stakeholders. They approached this work thoughtfully, collaboratively, and with the enormous sense of responsibility for the health and safety of our students, our faculty, and staff. If you can go to page 6, Chris, or page 8, I'm sorry. So in the instructional information for families, this fall we'll be implementing instructional practices to provide consistency across learning environments and to ensure the safety of students and staff. We'll achieve this by using a hybrid model, including both in-person learning and virtual learning through HCS School at Home. Regardless of the learning environment, we're committed to ensuring that students have an equitable experience and access to high-quality instruction. Based on feedback in our survey in July, we've streamlined our learning management platforms, so both the remote and in-person experience will utilize Google Classroom and Seesaw in pre-K through 3, providing similar expectations around that coursework. So high school will be, or grades 4 through 12 will all be Google Classroom. Grades pre-K through 3 will be using Seesaw and some Google Classroom embedded into their virtual learning. Page 9, please, Chris. The plan. So based on guidance from the State Department of Health, Madison County Department of Health, and the State Education Department, our task force teams determined that a hybrid learning model best addresses our instructional goals and the health and safety of our students and staff. On defined days, some students will learn remotely and others will learn at school. This will limit the number of students in our classrooms, on our buses, and in the hallways. This is all dependent on the governor's approval once we submit this plan. So our students will be lumped into 5 groups. Pre-K and K will have an AM and PM cohort. They'll attend school for a half day, either in the morning or afternoon, on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, with remote learning taking place on Wednesday. Elementary A cohort, which is consisting of grades 1 through 5, will attend school on Monday and Thursday, with remote learning taking place on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Elementary B cohort will attend school on Tuesday and Friday, with remote learning taking place on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The cohorting was determined to de-densify and allow our elementary teachers to better manage the needs of our young learners with all of the new protocols as far as face masking, social distancing, hygiene. It's much easier for them to manage a smaller cohort than to have 24 kids in front of them in a large space that wasn't their own classroom. And student placement in the elementary cohorts will be announced in August. And I know there's been a lot of questions about cohorting and the cohorting of siblings. We will do our very best to try to accommodate siblings within the elementary. It may be difficult if a family has an elementary, middle, and high school student to accommodate that, but we will do our very best to meet the needs of those families, but we can't guarantee that that will happen. Middle school and high school are totally separate. Although we are a district, we are in the needs of both our elementary and middle and high school are completely different as far as staffing, as far as space, as far as curricular delivery. So our middle school will attend school on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, with remote learning taking place on Monday and Tuesday. Our high school, grades 9 through 12, will attend school on Monday and Tuesday, with remote learning taking place on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Chris, if we can advance to page 10. In-person learning. Teachers and students will attend class in person on certain days, with additional safety measures in alignment with state and federal guidelines and recommendations. In this setting, teachers will provide in-person instruction, learning resources, and support utilizing both Google Classroom, Seesaw, and in-person instruction. Teachers will plan instruction that's quickly and easily transferable from in-person to remote in the event of a temporary building closure due to COVID or the directives from the governor's office. HCS School at Home. On days when students do not meet in person, they will be learning remotely. They'll engage in high-quality learning experiences. They'll utilize instructional resources and meaningfully connect with their teachers and other students. This will be delivered both synchronously and asynchronously. Again, based on feedback from our families on our surveys in July, we will incorporate much more synchronous learning into our remote learning environment. Page 11, please, Chris. For our synchronous learning, we have set some expectations for our students. They'll attend class on time per their class schedule that is put out by the building principals. They will follow our Hamilton dress code. They will be ready to engage and learn. They'll show their face on the screen to engage with the teachers virtually. They'll participate in class activities, discussions, and assignments. Expectations for asynchronous learning will be students will complete asynchronous activities assigned each day. They will show proof of participation in a daily virtual instruction by satisfactorily completing assignments to demonstrate evidence of student learning. Grading in HCS School at Home. Grading for all remote courses will follow the same grading policy as the courses in the in-person environment. Student schedules in HCS School at Home. When in a remote learning environment, time management will be critical to student success. Student and teachers will remain in communication regarding daily schedules and assignments. And with any traditional course, there's a risk of receiving a lower grade if a student falls behind. English as a second language instruction at School at Home. For our families that have ESL accommodations, we will have certified ESL teachers in those required areas with additional support as determined by our Director of Special Education. Page 12, please, Chris. Special education and support in HCS School at Home. Our special ed committees will determine the unique needs of students who receive special ed services and will make service recommendations for students attending the HCS School at Home remote program. The nature of special ed interventions will likely require a heavier concentration of synchronous supports and services, including but not limited to related services, health plans, accommodations, and modifications to ensure that individual student needs are met. Attendance for HCS School at Home. It was very clear in the state guidance that attendance must be taken and students must be attending both in class, in person, and remote learning. So students who log into Google Meet or Google Classroom, Seesaw for pre-K through 3 each day and engage in teacher-assigned learning apps will be considered present and will not be marked absent. Students who do not log in and do not participate in synchronous lessons through Google Meet or whatever the platform is, Seesaw, will be marked absent. It's important that students understand that HCS School at Home attendance is based on daily engagement, not solely on the completion of assignments. State law and HCS policy still require students to attend classes daily, whether you're in person or remotely. Remote attendance will count in the same manner as on-campus attendance in satisfying this requirement. Page 13, Chris. School at home designed for students in grades pre-K through 5. Teachers will structure the instructional day to ensure there are enough minutes devoted to each subject area, chunked into synchronous times and some asynchronous times. Daily synchronous time could include activities such as read aloud, small group instruction, class meetings, direct instruction by the teacher in a mini lesson. Daily asynchronous assignments will be completed independently. These may include activities such as assessing virtual library resources, student self-selected reading and writing, writing, math, social studies, and science assignments, special area assignments, and independent practice and project-based learning. The hybrid design is pre-K through 5. On in-person learning days will look similar to the traditional classes that students are accustomed to, but an important distinction is that students will be divided into 2 cohorts, which will allow them to be socially distanced within the room. On remote learning days, students will participate in both synchronous learning and asynchronous learning using Seesaw and Google Classroom. Heather has provided in this plan an elementary remote learning daily student schedule. This is just a sample for people to look at. She's also provided an elementary hybrid schedule that can be viewed. These are just samples, but it gives you an idea of what both a remote and hybrid schedule would look like for our young learners. Page 15, please, Chris. The hybrid design for grades 6 through 12. Students will follow a daily schedule of classes on both in-person learning days and remote learning days. In-person learning days will look similar to the traditional classes that students are accustomed to. Again, students will be socially distanced within the room. When the size of a class exceeds a room's distancing capacity, some students will be moved to a satellite location with appropriate audiovisual equipment where they may participate in the daily lesson. Placement in satellite locations when necessary will be made on a rotating basis. In-person classes will follow a daily bell schedule. Those satellite classrooms will be supervised. On remote learning days, students will participate in both synchronous learning and asynchronous learning. Synchronous classes will be held via Google Meet according to the schedule below. Mark and the secondary task force team has put together a middle school hybrid schedule for those viewing that you can look at. Page 16, please, Chris. They've also put in a hybrid schedule for our high school. Mark has also put in a middle and high school fully online schedule to be implemented if warranted by changing health conditions or directives by the governor. Both schedules, hybrid and fully online, were designed with the following considerations. Regular synchronous learning. Based on feedback from teachers, students, and families, we've built a remote schedule that allows for frequent and scheduled connection between students and their teachers in a live synchronous environment. And student well-being. Although we're prioritizing live instruction in the remote environment, it's not our intent that students should need to be logged into synchronous instruction or behind a screen for extended periods of time every day. Therefore, our schedules are also allow time for asynchronous learning. Therefore, the blend. Page 17, please, Chris. Instructional roles and learning tools for both learning environments. So in preparation of learning, we have put together student, parent, and teacher expectations that are very clear for a student. Be prepared for learning each day and have work and assignments completed and ready. Complete coursework by deadlines set by teachers. Parents, we would ask for your support. Teachers will post all weekly assignments on Google Classroom or Seesaw for pre-K through 3 by the beginning of each week. This will provide parents and students with a week at glance. Again, this was based on feedback from parents in our July survey. Page 18. Learning and teaching expectations. Again, expectations for students, parents, and teachers. Our expectation is that all students attend all classes according to their schedule. They participate in in-person learning activities and live synchronous virtual sessions, and practice academic honesty on all assignments. Again, that was brought up in our survey in July that we will address with our students about academic honesty when they're in an online platform. Parents, we are asking you to check with your children to monitor completion of homework and assignments and make sure your child is on track with their coursework. Teachers, provide in-person or live synchronous instruction, facilitate learning according to your billing schedule, manage online and offline resources, provide clear learning goals for students, and check assignments and provide feedback in a timely manner. Page 19. Support and intervention for our students. Attend any intervention and tutorial sessions that are established by your teacher or school. Teachers are going to provide intervention or tutorial sessions as needed and follow student IEPs and 504 accommodations in all learning environments. Learning tools for both environments. All students will be offered a device to use in either learning environment. All teachers in grades pre-K through 12 will utilize Google Classroom, Seesaw, and pre-K through 3 as their primary learning management system and communication tool. Google Classroom and Seesaw pre-K through 3 will use a similar structure by grade level in order to provide consistency for all students and classes. Page 20, please, Chris. Communication. All teachers will communicate when they're available to meet with parents and answer student questions. From a technology standpoint, we recognize the need to ensure that all of our students have reliable access to adequate technology resources on and off campus in order to fully participate in our academic programming. We're preparing for school at home and possible closures due to COVID. So our learning devices and our Wi-Fi hotspots will be provided as needed. We'll continue to work with Colgate. Colgate was very gracious in the spring, providing MiFis and hotspots to our students and families in need. We'll continue with that collaboration. Page 21. We are required through NYSED guidance that our teacher and principal evaluations, we will continue to implement our New York State approved APPR plan for observations. Staffing will ensure that all of our students are taught by New York State certified teachers. Social emotional needs. We know that the COVID pandemic has created different types of traumatic experiences and high levels of stress for many of our staff, our students, our families. And we understand that children need social and emotional support as they navigate the challenges of alternative learning. And we are prepared to provide many more supports than we did in the spring, because we know that many more of our students are going to be in an online environment and need the support that we can provide. So we are going to update our district's comprehensive school counseling plan. We are going to continue to support the myriad ways for referrals to mental health professionals. The referrals will come from teachers, parents, administrators, students, self-reporting, or through our mental health staff. Additionally, our mental health staff will use other indicators such as attendance and lack of engagement in online learning as reported by teachers. Page 22, please, Chris. We're going to offer a multi-tiered support system. Our Tier 1 supports what we do to promote wellness for all students. We're going to conduct universal screening to identify social emotional needs of our students. We're going to consider strategies to become a trauma-responsive school system to support our school. And we're going to develop a system to connect with students and families to promote attendance. Those are Tier 1 supports. Our Tier 2 and 3 supports will be early and targeted interventions. Some of those will include our school psychologists and school counselors at all levels. After assessing student needs, we'll conduct small groups for students. Those could target specific areas such as anxiety and depression. Our counselors will do home visits at a socially appropriate distance for students as needed. And we're also well aware that our adults are going to need some social emotional support. So we're prepared to provide those supports through our mental health professionals. Page 23. Return to school protocols. Since this is an ever-changing situation, our district may need to change protocols at any time to address the specific needs and circumstances in order to protect the health and safety of our students, employees, and our community. Our health guidance cannot anticipate every unique situation. As a result, we'll continue to consult available guidance through governmental agencies, our local medical health professionals, and other information deemed relevant to monitor our situation. So as we prepare for the opening of school, we'll implement health and safety plans that include ensuring adequate supply of inventory of PPE, cleaning with products that are approved by governing authorities per guidelines from the Environmental Protection Agency, ensuring compliance with the CDC, the New York State Education Department, and the Department of Health, and providing communication of procedures and expectations upon entering facilities and throughout our buildings. Protocols for screening and isolation. Staff will be required to complete a self-screening process prior entering an HCS building, and the district may require further screening of our employees at any time based on current state and federal guidelines. Daily temperature checks will be performed. Any staff member who has a temperature of 100 degrees Fahrenheit or greater or has a positive response on our screening questionnaire will be asked to stay home. They must stay at home. All visitors will sign in at our main entry along with required temperature screening, face covering, and questionnaire completed in use of hand sanitizer. We are asking our parents and guardians to screen their children for COVID-19 symptoms, and do a temperature check every day. If they present with a temperature of 100 degrees Fahrenheit or greater, or has a positive response on our screening questionnaire, they must stay home. We are doing a layered safety approach to our temperature checking. Although we're asking parents to do that, we understand that given circumstances that may not be appropriate every morning. So we are prepared to also temperature check through multiple entry points within the district before they enter school. I'm happy to report that J.S. Hope and I have been in communication at Colgate. Colgate is in the process of purchasing 200 non-contact thermometers that we can then distribute to our families to help with that process. If a student comes to school with a fever of 100 degrees Fahrenheit or greater, that student will be placed in isolation and the parent or guardian will be contacted to pick up their child. So we're asking parents to please do not send their child if they have a temperature of greater of 100 or if they are confirmed with any of those positive symptoms with COVID-19. And they will then opt to receive remote instruction until the following conditions for reentry are met. Staff and students should not enter campus or district buildings if any of the following apply. The individual is sick or has been sick in the past 14 days. Symptoms to watch for are a fever of 100 degrees or higher, cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, chills, muscle pain, headache, sore throat, fatigue, congestion, runny nose, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, or a new loss of taste or smell. Has a confirmed case of COVID-19 or has been in close contact with a person with a confirmed case of COVID-19. These individuals must follow all isolation and quarantine guidelines from the local health authority or their physician. Has a household member who is awaiting a COVID-19 test result or is awaiting their own test results. Has traveled outside of New York State, internationally, or on a cruise in the past 14 days. Those individuals must follow current CDC self-quarantine recommendations. 25, please, Chris. Isolation protocols. For students who are displaying symptoms of COVID-19 or who are feeling feverish, the school nurse will provide a clinical assessment to determine if and when a student needs to be sent home. Students who are ill will be quarantined from their peers. They'll be placed in an isolation area that we are equipping, which will be right across from our current nurse's office. And will be asked to be picked up within 30 minutes and no later than 1 hour from the time the nurse has contacted the parent or guardian. Other students will be removed from the classroom and taken to an alternate location on campus so that the classroom can be disinfected. If an individual who has been in school is lab confirmed to have COVID-19, the school will notify the Madison County Health Department in accordance with applicable federal, state, and local laws and regulations, including confidentiality requirements of the American with Disabilities Act and the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA. The school will then close off areas that are heavily used by the individual with the lab confirmed case until the non-porous surfaces in those areas can be disinfected. District communication will be provided to the students who came in contact with the student or staff member displaying COVID-19 symptoms. Staff members displaying COVID-19 symptoms will follow district protocols, including isolation from students and other staff members. Students and staff who have tested positive for COVID-19 will be permitted to return to school when they are 1 day fever-free without using fever-reducing medication and improved symptoms, and at least 10 days have passed since symptoms began. Our contact tracing protocols, we will cooperate with the state and local health departments with contact tracing. Page 26, please, Chris. Protocols for a positive COVID-19 case on campus. In the event of a positive case on campus, we will follow Education Law 906, which provides whenever a student and staff show symptoms of any communicable or infectious disease reportable under the public health law that imposes a significant risk of infection of others in the school, they will be excluded from the school and sent home immediately in a safe and proper conveyance. The school nurse will immediately notify the Madison County Department of Health of any disease reportable under the public health law, and the school nurse may make such evaluations of teachers and any other school employees that may deem necessary to protect the health of the students and staff. As I said, the district will have 2 rooms for health health personnel, one for students for nurse treatments, the regular nurse treatments, and another for isolation purposes. If a classroom or facility is closed due to COVID-19, we will follow all disinfecting and cleaning guidelines as set forth by the Department of Health. Protocols for personal protective equipment. We are required to comply with the governor's executive order regarding the wearing of masks. Students and staff are expected to wear face coverings during school hours. Students and staff will be provided with a reusable cloth covering. Again, Colgate has been gracious and has purchased 1,000 custom cloth face masks for us, both in adult and child sizes. Families will be responsible for daily cleaning and are requested to supply a student face covering should the one provided by the school become unusable or lost, or if they so choose to have their own. Staff may be provided with a full face shield if requested. Staff and students will appropriately wear face coverings at all times when compliance with social distancing is not feasible. Mask breaks will be offered at the discretion of individual teachers when social distancing is possible. Students will be required to wear masks at all times when riding on the school bus. Protocols for campus visitors. Access to the campus by parents will be limited to the front entryway and will be subject to additional screening procedures and PPE requirements. All visitors will be subject to screening by way of a symptom screening questionnaire before entering any Hamilton facility. Visitors are also required to have a temperature check before entering the building. All individuals entering the building will be required to wear face coverings. Volunteers are not allowed to visit our campus at this time. That includes mentors, college representatives, guest speakers, etc. Page 28, please, Chris. Protocols for disinfecting and hand sanitizing. Frequent disinfection and hand sanitizing will ensure health and wellness of our students and staff. Hand sanitizer will be available at the main entry to the campus, inside or outside of classrooms, in the cafeteria, and in common areas throughout our campus. Staff and students will be expected to regularly wash or sanitize their hands. Protocols for campus cleaning and disinfecting. Again, frequent cleaning and disinfection will support a healthy learning and work environment for our students and staff. Each classroom and restroom will be cleaned and disinfected on a daily basis. All high-touch areas will be disinfected throughout the day. Cafeterias will be disinfected between lunch periods. Staff will have access to disinfecting items to sanitize working surfaces, shared objects, and all high-touch areas after use and during breaks of instruction. Our restrooms. Building staff will develop plans based on their individual building needs to limit the number of students that enter the bathroom at one time. Increased disinfecting by the custodial staff will occur throughout the school day. Protocols for common areas and meetings. Our campuses will develop schedules and follow protocols for use of common areas, including how to sanitize the space between use. That will include both the elementary and secondary buildings. Page 30, please, Chris. Training. On the first day a student attends school, our teachers will provide instruction to students on appropriate hygiene practices and other mitigation practices. We will have videos developed by the CDC and the Department of Health that will help our teachers with that instruction. Students will participate in training specific to newly adopted health and safety protocols. All students will be trained on information about COVID-19 screening, identification of symptoms, the prevention of spread, and sanitation of work areas. Our teachers and staff will attend training and develop classroom procedures consistent with district and CDC guidance. All staff will be trained on COVID screening, identification of symptoms, prevention of spread, and sanitation of work areas. COVID-19 signage throughout the building and our campus, appropriate signage regarding hand washing, symptoms, prevention of the spread of germs, how to wear a face covering. All of those signage and protocols will be displayed throughout our campus, both in entrances, cafeteria, classrooms, offices. School arrival and dismissal. When possible, separate entrances will be utilized for our car riders, our bus riders, our walkers, and our young learners from CNS. Dismissal, our buildings will designate staggered dismissal groups. We're asking that sibling connections at both the elementary and secondary will be done outside the building. Separate exits and or staggered dismissal times may be used. Parents picking up students during the day will be required to call ahead so that that student can be sent or accompanied to the parent vehicle upon arrival. Bus transportation. Students using school bus transportation will follow revised protocols. Bus routes will comply with all NYSED guidance with social distancing restrictions, allowing a maximum of 22 students per bus. Per NYSED guidelines, school buses will not be equipped with hand sanitizer due to its combustible composition. Although the district is implementing the safety protocols and disinfecting efforts described, we are encouraging our families to drop students off, carpool, or walk with their student to school to reduce possible exposure on buses. We are requiring all of our drivers and students to wear masks while on the bus at all times. Our morning bus procedures. Students should practice social distancing as they approach and board the bus. Students will be seated starting from the back seats and then toward the front. Considerations for siblings and younger students will be mixed with older students will be taken into consideration. Students should not and will not share food, drinks, or personal devices. When we unload on campus, we'll start from the front to the back, again, practicing social distancing and following campus guidelines. Afternoon bus boarding, students will be seated starting from the back seats and then toward the front. Again, considerations for siblings and younger students. Disinfecting protocols. Between each AM and PM campus drop-off, school bus drivers, bus assistants, and staff will be spraying and wiping down seats and high-touch items with disinfecting spray. Bus seating areas will be disinfected after each bus route, particularly high-touch surfaces. When temperatures are above 45 degrees, bus windows and the roof hatch will be open to allow for outside air to circulate in the bus. Bus arrival and dismissal. Students will load and unload at staggered times at the direction of the bus driver. As students depart from the bus, they should immediately follow directions for entering the building safely. Students will wait in a designated preloading area for each bus to arrive on dismissal. Walkers. It's recommended that walkers keep social distance and use face covering while walking to and from school. Students will be asked to immediately leave campus and begin walking home at the end of the school day. Page 34, carpooling. If students carpool, they'll be expected to keep social distancing when walking toward the building. Students will remain at a social distance while waiting to be picked up in the carpool area. We're asking the students not congregate in large groups with other students on campus when dismissed from school at the end of the day. The bike rack, we'll use every other space in the bike rack to keep distance when arriving at school. Again, asking students to immediately leave campus upon dismissal. Page 35. General building arrival. Students will be required to have a temperature check upon entering the school building. Buildings will plan for entry, exit, and transition procedures that reduce large group gatherings. We're asking that masks be worn when entering the building and waiting in designated waiting areas. Page 36, please, Chris. Cafeteria, breakfast, and lunch. Based on building capacity and student enrollment, we will determine areas that may be utilized for breakfast and lunch. These areas could include classrooms, the gymnasium, library, or other large areas within our school building. Depending on the number of students in the school, students may have meals in both the cafeteria and in the classroom or in those other areas. Microwave will not be provided in the cafeteria due to the opportunity for cross-contamination with a high-touch device. We are not allowing any third-party food deliveries to be accepted into the building at this time. Seating and direction. Students will be seated according to a seating plan consistent with social distancing. Students who are allowed open lunch will be required to wash hands or use hand sanitizer upon their return to school and will be required to have a temperature check before re-entering the building. Page 37. Staff will monitor students while in the eating area to ensure social distancing. In-person breakfast and lunch will be provided on a daily basis. Menu items will be placed in prepackaged containers for students to take to designated locations within the school building. For students that are virtually and at home, breakfast and lunch, grab-and-go meals will be provided on scheduled school days and designated sites. We will work through that process as we have more information about how many families are keeping their kids home and how we will provide meals for those families. Standard classroom procedures, required social distancing. All classrooms will be outfitted with visual reminders of distancing requirements. Refillable alcohol-based hand sanitized stations will be placed either inside or outside of the classrooms. Whenever possible, students and staff will maintain consistent groupings of people to minimize the spread of the virus and contact. Student desks will be placed a minimum of 6 feet apart. The use of outdoor space for learning will be considered when possible. Class groups working outside will maintain social distancing from other classroom groups. Classroom training, students will participate in training specific to newly adopted health and safety protocols. Teachers will receive training to deliver classroom lessons on health protocols. Again, our classroom setups will be based on social distancing and CDC guidelines. We're going to ask our teachers to prop open doors to allow for additional ventilation during class and in between classes, so students don't touch doors or handles upon their arrival or departure from that classroom. Water fountains at this time will only be used to refill water bottles. We are expecting students to bring their own reusable water bottle for use throughout the day. We are working with some outside resources to provide water bottles for our students. Recess. Our building principals will provide training for staff on guidelines and procedures associated with outdoor play and student activities. At this time, the playground will not be used for recess until we can work out the details for cleaning and disinfecting of the playground. Page 40, please, Chris. Elementary specialized classrooms. Music, students will be required to wear a mask or other facial coverings at all times in the music classroom unless they're 12 feet socially distanced or they're playing an instrument. Musical instruments, mallets, and other equipment will be sanitized and wiped down after each use. For physical education, whenever possible, our classes will be held outside to allow for maximum physical distance between students. PE equipment will be disinfected and wiped down after each use. Individual art supply kits will be provided to avoid sharing of equipment, tools, and materials as much as possible. Art materials will be sanitized and wiped down after each use. In the library, visual reminders will be added and furniture rearranged to help students maintain social distancing while in the library. High-touch surfaces will be disinfected regularly. Page 41. Secondary specialized classrooms and extracurriculars. Again, phys ed, whenever possible, will be outside. Procedures will be implemented in the locker rooms to support social distancing. Equipment will be disinfected after each use. Athletics. At this time, athletics are not permitted, and that is based on the New York State Department of Health guidance and the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. Will follow all of their guidelines and procedures. At this time, the tentative fall sports start date is September 21st, and the State Athletic Association is looking at a condensed season for winter sports starting the winter sports season being January 4th through March 13th, the fall sports season being March 1st through May 8th, and the spring sports season being April 5th through June 12th. Those are all tentative dates, and they will be confirmed and set forth by the State Athletic Association. Page 42. Fine arts, large group practice sessions, sectionals, and rehearsals will adhere to social distancing guidelines provided by the authorized entity. If NISMA is allowed to happen, they will be required to follow protocols, and once those protocols are vetted and we are comfortable with that, as a district, we may or may not allow that to take place. School events and activities. We are prohibited from planning large attendance events such as all school assemblies, parties, socials, pep rallies, etc., that bring large groups of students together at one time until further notice. On and off campus student activities. All after-school club information is pending. No in-person assemblies will be held in the fall. All campus field trips are postponed. Student participation in off-campus activities, both co-curricular and extracurricular, will only be attended if specific guidance is provided by the authorized entity. Hallways and lockers. Students will use lockers on a rotating basis in the elementary. Students will be permitted to bring backpacks to class. Students and staff must wear face coverings in the hallway to avoid large group gatherings during the passing periods. In the secondary, students and staff must wear face coverings in the hall and avoid gathering in large groups during passing. To prevent congregating during transition times, students will access their lockers fewer times during the day. Students will be permitted to bring backpacks to class. Emergencies and drills. Education Law 807 requires that schools conduct 8 evacuation and 4 lockdown drills each year. We'll continue to follow those emergency actions of lockout, lockdown, evacuate, and shelter. We will implement protocols to assign each physical classroom to one of 2 groups, a green group, a white group, designated by campus on printed sign at each classroom, and we will then follow protocols for our emergency lockdown drills. Cleaning, sanitize, and disinfecting agents. We've just listed in our plan the products we use. They have been vetted by our CDC and our BOCES cleaning services. Those are for your information. So yes, go ahead.
I just want to again reiterate how much work and time was put into this, and thank everybody that was involved. I know this is a task that nobody's ever wanted to do, and that nobody ever thought we'd have to do. And unfortunately, we are in that situation. So, we're doing the best. You guys presented us with the best of what you have at this time, and I just wanted to make sure we mention that right now.
Yeah, thank you for that. This plan is extensive and encompasses the thoughtful expertise of our task force teams to put forth what we think is the best plan possible considering the cards we've been dealt. I want us to think about, we had to reimagine teaching and learning in every piece of our delivery of instruction, cleaning. Every piece of this operation needed to be examined and reimagined in a 2-week period. And I want people to be cognizant of that. And, I also want parents to know that they have a big decision to make, whether to send their kids to our hybrid learning or keep them home. And we want them to know that whatever they decide is okay. We're ready to support them, and we respect their decision. I think it's also important to understand and not compare district to district plans. There are so many variables that are unique to each district, with staffing, with facilities, with transportation, that will dictate how each plan is rolled out. And I think it's important that families don't compare district to district because there's too many unique variables. We'll be sending out additional surveys as we navigate the next 4 weeks before we open to gain more information. We'll want to know if families are choosing to keep their kids home, so then we can better plan our virtual piece. and our delivery of instruction. I can't say enough what a challenge this has been. For everybody, I want to thank our administrators for working 24/7 for the past 2 weeks, and our task force teams who have tirelessly worked and given up countless hours to help develop this plan. I appreciate everybody putting forth their best effort and putting forth what we think is the best plan given the guidance that we were put under. So thank you. We'll open it up to questions.
So again, just to reiterate, thank you so much to everybody who participated in putting this together and all the work that went into it. It is obviously a lot of work, and thanks to everybody who's been reading it at home in the last day or so and generating ideas and questions. So I just want to make sure we're all clear on what the process is from here. So we were legally required to provide a plan by 2 days from now, by the end of this month. And that's what we fulfilled within this 2-week period. And just to be clear, I think a lot of people may feel like, wow, we got a plan. We have 1 day to look at it and then respond. Approving this plan today doesn't mean that we're saying this is a plan set in stone, but this is the plan, the best plan we can come up with at the time. And then we'll be getting more guidance. And most importantly, I think we'll be generating, as we already have, a lot of ideas and a lot of questions from parents and from families, from teachers who haven't had a chance to look at the plan before, and then we'll be able to continue to adjust things as they go. Is that right?
That's correct. The plan will be very fluid. It will change. We understand it'll change. It'll change based on guidance from the governor. It'll change based on feedback. And quite honestly, it'll change by the more work that we do administratively and through our task force teams. Because, 2 weeks to reimagine our total operation is not enough time. There's still more that needs to be planned, to be examined, to be analyzed. That could change our plan. Absolutely. This is going to be fluid and it's going to change.
And so I'm thinking especially of there is obviously this plan does present some childcare issues for a lot of people. And I'm very sympathetic to the idea that is not the mission of a school to provide childcare. But at the same time, if there are families who don't have proper childcare, they can't be there to guide students, especially younger students, who can't do the work adequately on their own, and we'll need a lot of hands-on guidance for remote learning. So do you think that this will provide us with a chance, in the few weeks as we learn which families are going to choose to be remote more and which families are hoping to get in class more? Do you think there could be a possibility that there could be some room for maybe those, I'm thinking, especially maybe of the children of teachers who have to be at school 5 days a week based on their schedule, that maybe there could be some room for some students to be on campus more if because we have more people staying home, that opens up more spots for things to still be done in a safe, socially distant way. Do you think that kind of different kinds of thinking are possible as we move forward?
To answer your question, yes, everything is on the table at this point. We'll, based on feedback, based on surveys, things could change. The number of families that decide to keep their students home may change our virtual platform. It may change how we open, quite honestly, what our cohorts are going to look like. So yes, there are so many variables that could change this plan that we will take into consideration from now until we reopen, if we're able to reopen based on the governor's guidance.
I've got some other questions, but I'll let other people jump in before I monopolize too much of the time.
I think my biggest question comes with the scheduling. And I'm not expecting an answer now. It's more of a question to think about. But how will the synchronous learning happen when cohort A is home, but cohort B is on campus? I think that will be a challenge for teachers. And so just curious what thoughts have been started with that. And again, not expecting too much of an answer yet, because I know there's more thinking happening there.
Well, I think some of the thinking from the task force team in the elementary level, that was the driving force to have Wednesday as a virtual day for those teachers to be able to provide instruction and check-in to our students who are remotely learning. It provides a day that they can check in, do some synchronous, asynchronous, because we are going to have families that decide to keep their children home, and that's quite all right. We're okay with that, and we want to provide a robust virtual experience. And so that Wednesday virtual day provides our teachers that opportunity to do that. Heather, I don't know if you want to add more?
Yeah. So that was a huge discussion of the task force. And one of the pieces that's built into the elementary remote schedule is a synchronous time in the morning for a morning meeting or community building time. So that's an expectation that'll happen throughout the elementary. And we did find over our experiences from the spring that having a Google Meet with everybody was best conducive for that social gathering component. And then really taking a looking at those core academic blocks and providing an opportunity for teachers to decide whether it would be better, the learning objective would be better met through a synchronous method or an asynchronous method. So we are looked at and have ordered some pilot materials to take a look at some of the reading workshop pieces and ways to provide some asynchronous video lessons through the reading and writing workshop model that we currently use. So that would provide some structure for students to check in perhaps whenever they're able to as well, if it's not at those specific times. And then also in our intermediate grades, those teachers really found that synchronous lessons worked really well with some of the core academic areas. So really letting teachers decide to make that decision for students that are remote learning to come into the classroom in a virtual way to join those lessons. So we've done, this plan doesn't reflect it, but I have many other pages of work that teachers have really dug into taking a look at that challenge for sure. And then also with having Wednesday, be a time to make sure that those platforms are stronger and perhaps, build some small group lessons, some mini lessons into that time as well for students that specifically need some attention during that time if they're completely virtual. So.
Thank you.
I've got a question, if you could.
Sure.
Again, thank you, everyone, for all the hard work. It's very impressive, especially in such a short period of time. While we're on the subject of teachers, do teachers have to teach from school on days that they have no in-person classes?
We are allowing them to teach from home.
Okay. And somewhat related to that, obviously teachers are going to have an increased workload for the average year. For the online only students, those students that choose not to attend school, are there to be dedicated teachers just for them, or how will that work?
There will not be dedicated teachers just for them. The teachers will provide both. For both in-person and virtual, we'll be providing instruction. So we do not have the staffing to dedicate just teachers to the remote learning environment.
Yeah, I understand. Just a clarifying question.
Sure.
I've got more, but I'll pass for now.
I'll jump in. Again, I want to reiterate what's already been said. Thank you so much for all the time and effort that's been put into this. It was super impressive. So again, thank you. The very first thing I have is just a comment, and it's something that stuck out to me with just the verbiage of the social distancing versus physical distancing. I think especially in our environment, trying to defer away from that social distancing term and move into more of a physical distancing term was just something that really jumped out at me. And then, again, I have a bunch of questions here too, so I'll just pick one. When you're speaking of the training videos, are those, like from the CDC, are those going to be age specific and appropriate, or are we delivering like these same training videos to our kindergartners and our 12th graders? Like, how is that going to be differentiated?
They will be age appropriate.
Okay, great. And
sorry, I just want to jump in. Our task force also looked at making one specific for elementary students, with Hamilton teachers being the stars of the video. So we really talked a lot about that, like that we felt that delivering that personal explanations could also be helpful. So that's on the table as well.
Great. And then when you speak of, unfortunately, if teachers end up having symptoms or going out sick, there's already, the sub shortage that we have. So what is our plan for that? Or is it something that we're still kind of trying to think about?
Well, it's something we're definitely thinking about. We are putting together a substitute recruitment video that will be sent to the community. We are actively soliciting substitutes, and we've identified from our substitute list the regulars that we had last year that we're going to solicit to see if they're comfortable coming in, and if they are, we're going to provide training to them. If a teacher is out with symptoms, hopefully they can still deliver virtual instruction. If they can't, then we're going to have to go to plan B and secure a substitute or deliver instruction in another way.
Okay, so if they do that virtually, would there be an opportunity for the in-class learning for maybe that week or two to be switched to just virtual learning if we don't have somebody to actually?
That's a possibility.
Be in person. Okay.
It's a possibility.
Can I just follow up on that? Sorry.
Sure.
No, I'll pass on. Yeah.
Just to follow up on that, do you have clear what the sick day policy is for faculty staff? Because that's going to be very important that people are not coming. I think Ellen could speak more to this, obviously, but a cold may not be a big thing to pass normally, but passing a simple cold now could have major ramifications for everybody.
We do not have clear guidance yet. We've solicited guidance to come from our labor relations and from our school attorney.
So again, I'll sneak in here. And again, I just, I don't mean to be redundant or echo, but this is an impressive document that shows the absolute care and attention to detail and time and effort and all of those pieces that went in. And I think the fact that, we're talking about semantics goes to show the quality that this report is. Nobody said that we need to tear this thing up and start over. And I don't think anybody feels that way. And that is huge. I know, Bill, that I keep forwarding you plans from around the country. And many of those are literally being torn up and thrown out and starting over. And there's nothing here that needs to be torn up and thrown out and start over. It just needs to be tweaked to work. And that is admirable, commendable, and thank you for all of that. Again, my list of questions is so long that and again, it's questions and clarifications. It's not really concerns, but I think just as we've been talking, so students and families have the option to choose to work virtually only. Where are we with teachers and staff and the ability to work virtually? Are there positions that will have that ability, or is that just not going to work?
Again, waiting on guidance from labor relations and our attorney to see if what our leeway is with that, I guess, is the best way to put it. So I can't answer that until we have that guidance.
Can I jump in on that question?
Sure.
So with Ellen's question, the state guidance for the plan in page 19. I'm trying to look through and see if it's like a must-have in your plan or consideration. It says district school plan has written protocol detailing how the district school will provide accommodations to all students and staff who are at high risk or live with a person at high risk. So obviously the students have a choice because they don't have to come to school. But yeah, that was going to be a question I had on staff, if they have concerns. Because if I read it right, it says that the plan should have protocol, but I understand if you're waiting on guidance.
Yeah, we're waiting on guidance, so I can't put anything in at this time.
It's on the list.
Yeah, so everybody's on the same page, right?
Yeah.
And then I guess a little bit along the same lines of Corey's question about next steps. I think what so many people are craving and nobody can provide is this, okay, what's going to actually happen? And what is this actually going to look like in a month? And I hope we all know, and I hope everybody understands that this could literally change tomorrow. Literally. I literally have things changing every 2 hours. So I know that this can literally change tomorrow. From the standpoint of families who are trying to plan and working families that need to sort of figure out what they're, what is that next step? Are you ready for families to start saying, this is what we need, this is what we choose? Are you going to send out a questionnaire? So don't do that yet. Wait for us to send you the questionnaire. What is that next step? Where are we in that process?
We're planning on a questionnaire.
Okay.
If we already know that some families in our initial survey have said they're not sending.
Okay.
So we are aware of that. We'll reiterate with them and have just another confirmation from those families. But we are fully preparing to shift this very quickly to an online environment, with the expectation that could change overnight. That could change next week with the governor's directive, with an executive order. So, I think a lot of thought and preparation from the task force to put this plan out was with the understanding that this could change very quickly, and this plan would allow us to transition into a virtual environment very quickly.
Very much so. For the families who are choosing to go virtual, because that is affecting sort of your cohorting and your assigning of students and all of that, is there a requirement to commit to going virtual for the semester or for a certain period of time? Or what's the sort of expectations of families who are choosing to do that?
I think just like our plan is fluid, I think parent decisions will be fluid. Their comfort level. We're not asking parents to commit for a year or a semester.
Okay.
It may change our cohorts, and we'll adjust accordingly. It would be nice to know what some long-range planning is, but we're not requiring.
Do you mind if I jump in with a clarifying question?
Sure.
So one of the questions, I don't know if it's really the thing everyone's concerned about, not just with our school but others, I keep on hearing is student mask. So on our plan, page 26, I just want to make sure, it's pretty clear, but just to make sure we're all on the same page. So once a student is seated at their desk and physically distant, so it's 6 feet apart, they may remove their face covering at the discretion of the teacher. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I just wanted to get that clarified as well.
Sure.
Could you walk me through a morning for a student that, say, rides the bus? So they wake up. What does their parent need to do?
The parent will need to temperature check them. They will need to do the COVID questionnaire.
And how will the questionnaire be done? By paper, by an app?
We are working on investigating a solution that will help that through an app. Maybe Chris can talk more to that at this time, but we're trying to make that seamless for families. And expedite getting that information very quickly.
Okay. Now, walkers and students dropped off by their parent or guardian will go through that same process. They will be given a temperature check at home and fill out the form. Okay, now they get to school, they unload to the plan.
Yep.
Before they enter the building, are they giving another temperature check before they enter the door?
Yes, we'll have multiple points of entry, and they will be temperature checked before they enter the building.
Okay. Now, during PE class or recess, students will go outside from time to time, correct?
As much as possible.
And do they have to be temperature checked before they re-enter the building?
They do not.
Okay.
If they leave campus, Travis, so we're going to allow our juniors and seniors to go off campus for lunch for 2 reasons. That will help lower our cohorting for our meals, and then when they come back in, they will be temperature checked as they enter the building.
We're giving them the responsibility to try to follow all of our guidance.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
Then, Bill, you talked about this a little bit in your presentation, but it was the first question that came to me as I read the plan, and
Sure.
It seems like a lot of others had this question of why middle school is meeting 3 days a week versus elementary that's meeting 2 days a week per cohort in person, and especially given that it seems like infection rates are much lower among younger children than they are among the older middle school, high school students. You spoke to a little bit in your presentation, but I think just to make it clear for everybody who may be listening, could you explain that a little bit more?
Sure, and then I'll turn it over to Mark after. So we looked at this as a district, but within the district, we have 2 separate buildings that have separate needs of their students, separate staffing, separate curricular requirements. So the elementary, even if the middle school wasn't here, the elementary wanted that virtual day to break up instruction and to provide that virtual piece. So even if the middle school, was only here 2 days a week, elementary would not be here 3 days a week based on the recommendation of the task force, because they wanted that virtual day. And then,
even if middle school wasn't meeting and we had more space, we wouldn't have the staff to maintain the classes.
That's correct.
Even in those multiple classrooms.
That's correct. Mark, I don't know if you want to jump in and share.
Yeah. Just to kind of reiterate that the middle school and high school days are linked together, and elementary would be a separate component. So a reduction or fewer middle school, high school days would not equate to more elementary days. And part of the reason we're able to have the full middle school in the building and then the full high school in the building is that we're able to utilize satellite classrooms, which we believe would be developmentally appropriate for the students and the delivery of instruction that they need. So the question of why does middle school have 3 compared to high school having 2, that comes down to the middle school students' need for more structure throughout their day, both the social emotional piece, but then also the delivery of curriculum and providing them the supports that a high school student maybe wouldn't need quite as much as a middle school student. So that's where that division came from. We have 5 days to work with, and we've split it up with 3 to the middle school students and then 2 to the high school students.
Well, I'm sure it's making all the middle schoolers angry, but they're always angry anyway. So
Yeah.
And then this is kind of an unfair question to bring up, and it's maybe too personal, but I have a daughter going into 2nd grade, and she really wants to know if 2nd graders are still going to get to sit by the window at lunchtime. So that's a big concern. Just you don't have to answer that, but just to preview that's a big concern for the 2nd graders.
We'll take that into consideration.
Corey, I think I have one in the same boat.
Yeah.
This gets a little personal, not as personal as Corey's, but so if we could talk for a minute, and I know this has come up from other parents, so about the BOCE schedule and those students that are in CTE programs. And in addition to that, like in the case of my personal situation with a senior, he will be taking just health the second half of the year and then a double gym class. So what would a student like in a senior situation look like? Would he still be presenting to school 2 days for gym, and will there be study hall? Like, how would that, he wouldn't really need a study hall because he's only taking gym classes. How would it look for a student like that to still fulfill attendance requirements?
Mark, you want to tackle that one?
Sure. So health and then double gym you had mentioned. And with seniors and senior privileges, if there are study halls at the end of the day, students are able to leave after all their coursework is done. I would have to talk with the phys ed teacher and health teacher to determine what's happening in certain days. And with the online piece, there are asynchronous days and synchronous days. But that really doesn't have to do with necessarily with what you're talking about. But on the Mondays and Tuesdays, you know, they would probably, after BOCES, they get dropped off at school. If they had a study hall and it was their lunch, they would have the ability to leave campus for lunch and then come back and fulfill the courses that they would need to do with health and gym.
I'm going to jump in for a second on another BOCES question. When will we get guidance from BOCES on their scheduling? When will we be able to provide that to families?
So that is forthcoming. We don't know. We have a tentative CTE schedule. They're looking at a Monday virtual day and then cohorting an A and B group on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. With seniors in the AM and juniors in the PM is their tentative schedule. And we would accommodate our students with transportation to get to those days whenever is needed.
Okay, thank you.
From our campus.
And I don't want to keep, this will be my last BOCES question. So right now we currently are sharing a bus with like Madison School District. How is that going to work?
We're not sharing a bus with Madison this year.
Great, thank you.
For exposure purposes.
Okay, wonderful. That was my concern. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And also to add to the BOCES questions, by running our schedule a straight 9, hopefully we're going to avoid conflicts between our schedule and BOCES schedule if we're keeping with the AM, PM times that they have traditionally used.
Can I jump in with the unrelated question?
Sure.
Dismissal for students grades pre-K to, I believe, grade 2 is our policy, who do not ride the bus. How will the parent-guardian sign-out process work? I know that normally that is a zoo. What will that look like under this plan, or if not the plan, the current thought?
I don't think we're there yet, Travis. That's something that we're going to have to figure out and determine. We're just not there yet.
Okay.
If I could just jump in for a second. So some of those answers are also going to be dependent on numbers. And so we really have looked at the plan for having students come enter the buildings through multiple doors. And now, you know, we really need to take a look at what those numbers are going to look like in actuality. So that will definitely be, you know, forthcoming as we have a better idea of what the numbers are looking like.
Okay, thank you. I'll jump in with one more if I could. I've heard this around too. So parents and guardians are going to have a lot on their hands as well with the online learning. For parents and guardians who, like I, are not exactly tech savvy, has there been any thought of like, you know, like any online, this is what you need to know, this is how you use it? because a lot of us are lost.
Chris, I'll let you jump in on that one.
Sure. So one of the things that I actually really liked about the time period that we were out earlier in the spring was I got to know a lot of parents who emailed me or called me with questions or concerns about what was going on online. And also some of the results of our survey were that, parents would appreciate some more direct instruction. So I would like to hold, parent classes virtually. And I'd like to do that live. I'd also like to create videos. I've already created a technology section of our COVID webpage that's got just guides in it, but I want to be much more robust about that, and also encourage parents to reach out when they are feeling lost or frustrated about that. I've got a lot of tools at my disposal that allow me to help parents remotely if something is not working correctly. So I think that I want to be a lot more proactive in that arena.
Good to know. Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Travis, another piece is on our task force, there was a teacher that really dug into that exact question and trying to sift through. There's so many different videos and training pieces out there to try to find a very small section of just the best videos and training pieces for parents, so that we could provide that in a uniform way among our pre-K through 5 parents, and really, pick the best of the best, because sometimes just a Google search will give you too much. So that is definitely on, she's done a lot of work to look through that.
Okay, well, thank her for that, and thank you as well for answering that question.
Sorry, Corey. I'm going to throw it out there.
Go ahead.
So I know you've gotten a lot of responses and questions from community members, from us, in writing and all of those things. And you had said that you had hoped to answer those questions in about a week. Is that going to, how is that going to happen? Is that going to come out as an FAQ? Is that going to, okay.
Yes, that'll come out in FAQ on our website.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, the process of building that page, and once we're ready to go, we'll start answering those questions in a timely manner.
Yeah, so we're gonna continue building the COVID section of our website. We already have a tab there devoted to the reopening. The plan is already posted there prominently. The next thing that will get added to that reopening section will be the FAQ, where we will sort of consolidate the questions that are similar in nature and provide answers for them.
If I could just jump in, one very frequently asked question, I'd like to Bill already mentioned it, but I just want to re-clarify that I've seen is the idea about, will families with multiple children in elementary have their children placed in the same cohort? So I know as a mom, that would be one of my very first questions as well. And we have already started looking at that and are definitely prioritizing putting children from the same family, in either cohort A or cohort B. So I just want to, just reiterate that we definitely heard that and are, working on that as up to 4:00 today. So.
And then along these same lines of communication, I think it's going to be important that we maintain as much open communication. I'd like to see after the state guidelines come out, if we could do another session, and maybe if we even did separate sessions with maybe one staff member and one board member available, just to collect ideas and feedback, even if it's not about being able to answer every question or give a definitive answer right on the spot, but getting those questions from people, getting that feedback from people, I think is going to be really important. I think more than ever, we're going to need to leverage everything that this community has to make this successful. And whether that means we can find virtual tutors through Colgate students or through our wonderful retiree community here in Hamilton and all the wealth of knowledge that they have, or finding different ways to make sure that the students at home, especially those who don't have a particularly strong support system or whose parents are going to be overburdened with extra work because they're essential workers, that those students are not lost in this. That's what most concerns me is are there kids who, when they're left to their own devices, are going to do other things with their devices, right? So I think that the more we can do, and again, as community members, maybe we can take some of the burden off of the teachers. Maybe through the PTO, those of us who are parents that do feel more comfortable with technology can help maybe partner or pair with a few different parents who don't use technology, and maybe even in the same grade, so that we're talking about the same thing. So, I mean, when Chris explains Google Classroom, he has to explain it from a 30,000 foot view for everybody in the school. And maybe when I talk about it with another parent in high school, it's a whole different conversation because we're talking about the same class that our kids are in. And I can say, oh, no, this is what they're doing in that class that day. And maybe a lot of just maybe the schools facilitating those introductions and pairing people together in a way, and not really burdening teachers to be up till 8 at night giving workshops on how to use technology.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Corey. And, what we're going to need help with as well, when we were talking about meals and the amount of families that we will have that are utilizing remote instruction, how do we get meals to those families that are in need? So we may ask the community for help in delivering of meals, because our bus drivers, we have a limited pool of bus drivers, and they're going to be on multiple runs throughout the day, for our CTE students, for our other students in outside placement. So we may not have the inside resources to deliver meals that we may need drivers to deliver meals that are comfortable, doing that. So, those are just some of the many things we're thinking about and discussing.
Are those a couple of questions that we could add to the questionnaire, just to kind of make it less correspondence going out? Like, would you be willing to help,
Sure.
So,
We'd have to be kind of careful with some board policy regarding, say a Colgate student, where the student and the Colgate student, for example, are not, there needs to be oversight from the school for a liability reason.
Sure.
Well, I mean, the questionnaire that goes out to the parents, and I've already seen some things going around on social media saying, I've connected with this other parent who's really good in math, and so they're going to work with my student in math because they're in the same grade, and I'm going to work with their student on writing because I'm really good at that. So, kind of strategizing, as Corey said, in that way, or maybe, where someone, let's utilize the strengths in our community and amongst our parents.
That's great. Can I, again, I know one of the areas that's of great concern for lots of people is special ed, and I really appreciated that the plan was to do individualized plans. And the sense I had coming into this was that you guys felt like you were pretty in control, and that you sort of had a handle on your needs and where you were going. Do you still feel that way, or is that still a work in progress like everything else at this point?
Kevin, do you want to jump in on that?
Sure. Ellen, yeah, I would say it's definitely a work in progress and fluid situation with the plan. Our current plan is for our special education population really to mirror the general education population, so it's equitable. We went into this plan considering as much in-person service for our high needs students as we could, and we really tried to figure a way out how to get our high needs students as much face-to-face interaction as we could. Right now, the special education students, all special education students, again, are mirroring the general education students, so they'll be here on A days and B days and get their services when they're here live and remotely, just like general education students. But again, I said this is a fluid plan. We continue to look at creative solutions to having our high needs special education students here as much as we can. And today, I think we made some really good progress in that. You know, the problem or the questions, I should say, that come up when you try to give some group of students more face-to-face time than others is equitability. And, you know, how do you justify that, or how do you, more importantly, how do you delineate that? So who gets that extra service? You know, is this a high needs child, or is this a high needs child? So it makes it really tricky when trying to do that. The other challenge that we face in doing that is we're such a small district. We don't have the resources in staffing in order to do this easily. You know, when you have say special education teachers that are doing more face-to-face time with some kids, you know, they still have other kids that are not high needs. So how do they still deliver those services to their other students? How do they still deliver the services to the students that are learning remotely? And we just don't have the number of staff to just, like I think Travis alluded to it earlier, or Corey did, you know, devote one person to online only. We just don't have the people to do that. But having said all that, I think we're making some progress in creating a much more robust learning experience for our highest needs students. So we're still working, the plan's still fluid. Although the plan currently right now, what we're able to do is to do a mirror image of what the general education students are receiving. So we're continuing to look at creative solutions, not just for our special education students, but our students that receive related services as well too. We know that remote learning does not work well for some students, and may work okay for others. So we're looking at creative solutions for that. So that's ongoing.
Kevin, while we have your attention, like you said, some students learn better in person and some online. Has there been any guidance for how speech therapy classes should work?
Yeah, I was just actually online today, looking to see what's recent out there. No, there's not any real new guidance on any of our related services since the original COVID outbreak. So nothing's really changed, you know, as far as delivery of instruction of related services for those students. You know, outside of CDC guidelines and NICEA guidelines and Department of Health guidelines. So I'm you know, I was on like the speech, their national site today, looking to see if they had anything new on there, and theirs was still hadn't been updated. So we're still waiting on them.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Travis, we are looking at, you know, I have different models of how that might look.
Probably like a music class, or
yeah. So
yeah, it popped in my head there. Thank you, Kevin, for all your work.
I think the biggest thing that I noticed when it came to the plan was the schedules and how that changed dramatically from what we had in the spring. Where in the spring, we requested our families to give our kids a couple hours of learning a day because we were getting by and we were trying to figure out on the fly. But it wasn't necessarily the best to get education to the children and to get them to actually learn a lot of things. Thankfully, it was the end of the year, and so teachers didn't get to some subjects, but they could kind of decrease just a little bit earlier. I know that when parents look at this, they're going to say, oh my God, even the at-home learning, like, how are we going to do this? And nobody knows. And we need to really be supportive of each other, of the school, of the teachers, and all be in this together, because this is new for everybody and it's not going to work perfectly for anybody. And it's really hard to see that there's a full day, but there should be a full day. Our kids need a full day. And so we need to do what we have to do to figure out how to make those adjustments in our lives. And and support each other instead of tearing things down. We need to support the school, and we need to support each other in this process. It's different, but if we thought, or if the plan was to just have 2 hours a day online for the kids, that's all my kids did in the spring. Sorry. What are they going to learn? And so this plan shows me that my children are actually going to learn something this year. And for that, I'm grateful. And is it scary? Yes. I work full time. My husband works full time. Thankfully, I'm working from home right now, but it doesn't mean that I am going to be able to do it flawlessly, right? And some people aren't at home, and some people have childcare issues, and we're all in this boat. We're all in a different part of the boat, and we all will wiggle through it in different ways, but we have to support each other through it. And I think that was the scariest part to me when I saw that was, oh my God. But then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this is what's right for our kids. And I just felt that it was really important to say that, because I can't be the only one that looked at those pages, 15, 16, in that range, and thought, at first, right? And I actually read them twice in a row because I was a little taken aback for a second. But that taken aback was the reality hitting me that we do need to do this for our kids. And the only way that they're going to be able to learn is to be able to learn in some shape or form like this. And so, again, I thought it was important to say that I got nervous too, and I still am, and I don't know how it's going to work. And I'm grateful for all of you guys that spent all this time doing this, and yet you still don't know how it's going to work. But if we don't stick together on it, and if we don't encourage each other and support each other, it won't work as well. And in that same vein, if we send, in the past, I've sent my kid to school with a scratchy throat. He'll be fine, right? I can't do that this year. And I have to be really diligent, because I don't want to get you guys sick. I don't want to get the teacher sick. I don't want to get my kids' friends sick. And I don't want my kids to get sick and bring it home to me and to get my family sick. So in that same frame, we have to take more caution, and we have to for real take their temperature, not just, they were fine last night, that type of thing. Like, we have to be diligent so that we can support each other and protect our community.
Thank you for that, Michelle. These are the most challenging times of our professional careers as educators. When I think back to March 13th, when we first got the word that there's a potential we could be closed, and 4 days later we were closed and in a virtual environment, and we switched gears very quickly and provided, at that time, a learning environment that was virtually is going to look much different than now. And now we have this 2-week window to reimagine our total operation, and it's not going to be perfect, and it's going to change, and we're going to have to be flexible and understanding and patient as a school community, because things are going to change, and not everything's going to be perfect, and we're going to do our best. And this is the best plan that we have put forth, that we think is going to, meet the needs to keep everybody safe, to provide instruction in what we think is the best way possible given our circumstances.
Mm-hmm. I want to comment and be fair to the work that you all have been doing, because you put this plan together in 2 weeks, but you haven't just been thinking about this for 2 weeks. No. You have been thinking about this since March 12th or 13th or whatever that date was, so you just didn't know what they were going to ask for until 2 weeks ago. And so I also want families to know that this isn't, it's not like the district has been sitting around, just, watching the grass grow until this declaration came out 2 weeks ago. You've been doing this nonstop since mid-March and trying to figure out how to do it well. And so, yeah, putting the plan together happened in 2 weeks, mostly because you didn't know what the rules were going to be. But that doesn't mean you haven't been looking and learning and all of that. I was just thinking, as you and Michelle were talking, that this is going to be prime opportunity to model resiliency and all of those pieces that it's going to change.
Yeah.
It's going to change. And you're right. This is going to be, things are not going to work. And then we're going to have to re-evolve them. And some of that'll work and some of it won't. And then it will have to re-evolve again. And as exhausting as that is, and as much as change fatigue happens, it's what it is. And, I was reading something yesterday that talked about what happened in March. And what happened in March was not remote learning. What happened in March was not virtual learning. What happened in March was crisis learning. And it's not fair to look at anybody and expect anybody to do what they would have done with their however many years of training and experience in crisis learning. And so, hopefully now we have a little bit of more time and experience and evolution under our belts moving into this. So it's not crisis, which is really what Michelle was describing was right. that crisis learning, but it's still not what anybody exactly went to school for. And everybody's learning as they go. But I think there's value in that too. I think there's value in seeing that everybody's learning as they go. And that's okay.
Well, I think a lot of, as educators, we've learned a lot, and we've learned a lot that we can take forward with us to make the delivery of our instruction here at HCS better, and our operation better. So there are some good things that will come of this.
And Bill, as changes and updates are made to the plan, is the plan that's online, will that be updated as you guys make changes to it?
Chris, I believe it changes automatically, but I'll refer to the tech expert.
Yes, given the wonderful world of cloud computing that we are now a part of, any changes that we make to the plan reflect instantaneously on the website.
And when changes are made, we'll make sure that there's an updated date on that too, correct?
Yes. And also, we've been trying really hard to utilize all of the technologies at our disposal, both with mass emailings and text messages and phone calls to keep everybody in the loop when things are happening. So, if significant changes are happening to that document, we'll make sure that people know about it.
And I was going to ask you, is there some way to signify what the change is, either highlighting it in the document or having a page at the front that says, updates that occurred on this date, so that people who are looking at it's 45 pages. It took me hours to read it. It's hours. Can't imagine how long it took to make it. It took me hours to read it. If you post that it's updated, but don't highlight what's changed in some way, it's going to be like, I don't know what's changed in here. I don't know what's different. So I would just ask that you highlight the changes or have a page at the front that says, these are the updates from this date, and that sort of thing. Or an
accompanying a blog to accompany it that would have the updates.
Yeah,
something
that way would be good.
We can mark it a number of different ways, but we'll make sure that people know where the changes take place.
Thank you.
And along those lines, I think, Bill, I think it would be great if when the state guidance does come out, hopefully soon, that we hold perhaps another forum like this. It wouldn't necessarily have to be an official board meeting, but a forum like this where you can present that again, if it's significant enough to warrant rethinking the plan in major ways. I think it'll be useful for people to hear that in this format.
Yeah, we can.
And I was just going to say, in the fact that Ellen said it took hours to read, it did take me the same, and it will take parents the same. But I do encourage everybody to read it, not just the mom in the house, not just the dad in the house, not just the grandma that watches the kids. Everybody to read it. In fact, there's parts of it that I'm going to sit down and read with my kids because I think that they really need to understand. I went over the split A/B with them and they seem to get it. Obviously my kids are young, so I don't want to bombard them with too much and there's a month to go and things will change. But I do think it's important that students read it to their best ability. I don't think it needs to be a nighttime reading for anybody by any means, but again, it's an important thing that we are all on the same page so that we can all support and protect each other.
My last comment on everything, and again, I think it's a great plan. And from the get-go, two of my big worries, I do feel like your plan does address in some ways, but I worry about some students falling well below grade level, and it reminds me of our time as a focus district. I just hope that we can keep access to that. I worry about kids who they're going to be doing their online homework at 9 o'clock at night, maybe 8 o'clock in the morning, they have to be back online and do a class. And last, I really worry about the safety of some of the students when they're doing online learning. When the students are in the school, we know they're safe. But it seems like there's some checks and balances in the plan to help keep an eye on those concerns. And lastly, Chris, could you answer this question? With the online learning, I know we're using Google Classroom and we're using Seesaw. Are there going to be some platforms that you have too much of a security concern with that you would encourage students and staff not to use?
Yes. I'm in pretty constant communication with the staff, and the staff is always really good about checking with me about those sorts of things. You know, we have to comply with New York State Ed Law 2D, which has some pretty stringent security measures in place. Software has to be on their approval list. So it's my responsibility to make sure that the stuff that we're using complies with that sort of thing. And also to something that may address your concern about kids being safe online. One of the ways that we are changing how things are going to be now as opposed to when we went out during the emergency is the plan is now to have every student bring home a district device regardless. And I know exactly what those devices can do and what they're capable of and what sort of security is on those devices. I also can push things to kids if they need them. And, you know, since they'll be cohorting, they'll bring it home the night that they're going to be going home. And then if they're, heaven forbid, there's some sort of emergency and the governor pulls the plug on us at a moment's notice, the kids have got the device already and they're used to that routine. So that is something that's changed from the spring.
Thank you, Chris. And again, thank you everybody involved in this process and for all of you to explain it and to answer our questions. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
Sorry, and this is just while we have Chris, not to prolong this too long, but this was a question. It's a question I have as well, but it came up in the comments that were sent in. Could you explain why we're using Seesaw? I mean, I'm personally not a big fan of it, having used it as a parent. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of reasons for it. So the alternative to using Seesaw would be to eventually become a Google Classroom district pre-K-12, probably, right? But we simply don't have time to get everybody completely proficient before September in that arena. Also, I believe that Seesaw offers some unique things to younger kids that Google Classroom doesn't. For example, that they aren't required to sign in each time they access the platform, whereas with Google Classroom they would be. And if you take it might be problematic for a student who can't yet read to log in with a fully qualified username and password. But I have been reading more about methods around that. So we would eventually like to become a single platform district, and we're getting there.
They can always do it for Netflix, though, I'm sure.
And just on the other side of that, I actually liked Seesaw. I liked that my kid could take pictures and send stuff very easily. So I think Seesaw is interesting because I think there's some pluses and minuses to it. but I hear you, Corey. Like I too would like us to be on one platform at some point.
We're getting there.
And that is the goal.
So, board members, how are we feeling right now? Thumbs up if we're good. More questions? Thumbs up. Goodish. Good as we can be right now. Okay. So I want to thank you all again for the time tonight, for the time prior to tonight, and to remind everybody that's listening. A lot are signing off quickly right now, but thank you for being on tonight. We had a great cohort of people watching, and that the link was sent out. So if you now have more questions for us, please use that link so that we can do our best to get an answer. And hopefully by answering through an FAQ page, as we're planning to do, it will help alleviate multiple questions of the same nature and will help you community members be able to get your responses a lot quicker, which I think will be helpful for everybody. So, Bill?
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. What's that?
Is there any other discussion points now? Are we ready to move with recommended action? Yes? All right, then I need a motion to adopt the reopening plan as recommended by the administrative team and superintendent and to submit to the state ed department for approval.
I'll move.
Now second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It brings us to, we have 3 pieces of business tonight. So this brings us to our second point of business. I need a motion to set the tax levy for the 2020-2021 school year at $7,695,195 as recommended by the business manager and superintendent.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm asking this question because there's a chance a lot of people are still online watching and might be a little confused by this. Matt, could you walk us through the reasoning for this, please?
Sure. We work very closely with the Madison County Real Property Office, and we cannot finalize the tax levy until the local assessors from the municipalities, in particular the 5 that we work with through Madison County, have finalized the tax rolls for the 2020 school tax year. So once those tax rolls are finalized, we receive the documentation from Madison County. Once you take action on this, now is when the levy can then be divided up to individual taxpayers, bills generated and sent out. So all taxing jurisdictions are doing this through the county office. So to act on this, there are times where we don't have this at our regular August board meeting. We don't get it until late August. We have to have a special board meeting. This is good news that we have this in. Equalization rates finalized. That's another thing we often have to wait for. So this should be very helpful in getting our reporting done and information back to the county and to the state to ensure that tax bills are done accurately and sent out in a timely manner around September 1st. So
Thank you for explaining that, Matt.
Yep.
Other discussion?
Now, Matt, the library tax levy follows the same thing, or are we not voting on that right now?
Correct. It's all included. The library tax is based on all the same assessment, all the roll information.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 2.3, I need a motion to revise the 2020-2021 school calendar as recommended by the superintendent.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Bill, can you please just update us on what is being changed?
Sure. What I would like you to approve is moving our superintendent's conference days, originally scheduled for October and March, to move them to September 8th and 9th, and that would move our start date for students from September 8th to September 10th. The reasoning behind that would allow 4 professional development superintendent days, September 2nd and 3rd, and then 8th and 9th. That would allow our staff 4 days to prepare for our opening, to do some training, just to help get us ready, considering all the changes and protocols that we are going to have to adopt and put in place. So that would allow us those 4 days before we welcome students back.
Great, thank you for that.
Bill, we envision the school will be ready for open with the construction project by then?
Yes. Yes. We had a job meeting today, and Matt can share with you briefly that everything was on schedule. I don't know if there's any details, Matt, that you want
to. Everything is right on schedule. We anticipate at our next job meeting in 2 weeks, we are going to push Tuesday, August 25th as being the target date for contractors to be done and out of here. It's pretty lofty. The date of substantial completion is Friday, October 28th. So that is the date that's been submitted to SCD, the date that we've basically employed our architects and construction management company for. There will certainly be some touch-up work, some punch list items, but everything, we should have the building back hopefully as early as Tuesday, August 25th. So that will give us plenty of time to prepare for opening, whatever that looks like, but also for cleaning purposes. So it should give us plenty of time to be ready for teachers to come back on their own, even before the conference days, and then to welcome our whole faculty and staff back for those conference days on the 2nd. So very, very good news on that front. The only thing that likely will not be done for the start of school will be the digital message board out front. But that's not a priority when looking at what's being done inside the building. So anything that happens after August 28th will not interfere at all with the instructional process here at the school. So good news on that front.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
And then also thinking about the calendar in general, we may see, I would assume, some more revisions to the calendar as we think about how we're doing instruction and kids only come in certain days. It may not make sense to have a half day on a Friday, for example, when that would impact the students who only come 2 days a week, and that's Friday. Maybe having that on a Wednesday when there's no elementary students in the building, for example, might make more sense.
Yeah, there's contractual language on our half days and observed holidays, but we do have some flexibility with our half days. So we can negotiate that with the HTA and have some flexibility in moving them around, so we're not hitting every cohort at the same time.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Right, Corey, one more thing to add on that. The thing that could come into play, depending on how long the schedule is impacted, is observed holidays. Mm-hmm. There are some years, and this was brought up at the task force meetings. There are some years where every observed holiday falls on a Monday. So that is something we can certainly look at. In the immediate future, once the school year starts, Columbus Day is on a Monday. The next would be Veterans Day, which is actually on a Wednesday this year. So that would work out well. But if we get into a situation where we have, encounter all these observed holidays, because of contractual obligations for staff, those being paid days off, paid observed holidays, we have flexibility, I believe, to change days of attendance for a certain cohort to try to level things out in the long term. But that's something that's on our radar. Same thing with snow days. This year there might not be snow days; they might be virtual days. So that those things are all on our radar and are going to get ironed out as we navigate through the year.
And right now, there's no statutory provision to provide fewer than 180 days of instruction.
Right.
Thank you all. All those in favor to revise as recommended currently?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That brings us to adjournment. Could I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll move.
I'll second. That was fast, Corey. You were ready.
I'm not entertaining discussion. No, I'm just kidding. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of adjourning this meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all and have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go take a nap.
Thank you.
Bye.
I can never figure out how to get off of